Hi beautiful souls, it's Sandra. I'm here this afternoon to share with you some of my animal decks. This video was inspired by an attempted walkthrough I started with this new deck, which you may have seen, illustrated by Jena DellaGrottaglia, and I mentioned her name first because the artwork is absolutely stunning. These are the backs of the cards with this beautiful mandala, and this crystal in the center almost has this three-dimensional look to it. And we'll look at more of these cards later, but here, for example, is the canary sitting on a flute. The background colors are just beautiful. There is a lot of sacred geometry in the background of each one, and there's a lot of really special touches for each of the animal. This, of course, is Colette Baron-Reid's new deck, but I just had to mention Jena first because her artwork really does carry this deck. So as I said, this video was inspired by Colette's new deck, and the reason for that was some of the keywords on the cards didn't sit well with me. And in the guidebook, Colette does address my concern. She says in the preface, "The cards are not meant to depict all nature, nor all the animals that share the earth. You might have associations with the spirit animals that are different from those you find here. And I ask you to be open to this oracle's interpretation of each spirit animal's power. The animals whose images grace this oracle chose themselves to be part of this when I opened myself to their wise guidance." So even though Colette, does address this issue, there's certain cards and there's certain keywords that I just didn't feel reflected either the spirit of the animal or what was in the guidebook. Many cards do. They are just perfect. The message is perfect. But there's a handful that just really I found kind of awkward, and they didn't resonate with me. So I will address that in a bit. The decks that I'm going to compare and have another look at, there are 4 decks to look at. This is Stephen Farmer's Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides, and this is illustrated by B. Sturgis. This deck came out in 2008. The Wild Unknown Animal Spirit, which is illustrated and written by Krans. This came out this year as well too. And last year in 2017, Spiritsong. Now this is a tarot deck, but it works really well as an oracle deck. And one of the beauties of this deck is that it has 78 different animals. So there's a lot of messages to be received in this deck, and this is illustrated and written by Paulina, Cassidy. And the other deck that I'm going to have a look at doesn't have nearly as many cards, but there are some really beautiful messages and beautiful cards, and I think it's worthwhile sharing this one as well too. And this is written and illustrated by Sandra Kunz. She's a Canadian, and her company is Stroke of Soul. So those are the different cards that we're going to look at. All 5 decks offer animal spirit messages, and I think it's important to remember that these were all received by a human soul, interpreted for a different reason, a different purpose, a different time, and I think that is an important aspect to respect. I'm going to look at the artwork, the keywords, the expanded messages, if there are any. I'm going to look at the guidebook and how the guidebook enhances or kind of takes off in a completely different direction from the cards. I'll start by looking at 4 cards, same animal across 4 different decks. So for example, here's the peacock from the Wild Unknown. You'll notice the Wild Unknown animal has no keywords, just the name of the animal. It does have the elemental symbol at the top. This is the Stephen Farmer deck. Short message. This is Paulina Cassidy's tarot deck, Spiritsong. And this is the deck that started this video, that inspired this video. I really like how the light is, it looks almost like it's shining through the peacock's throat chakra. And you may be interested to know that there is only one animal that is common across all 5 decks. And I don't know if you can guess what that is, but I will include that in the card comparison. First of all, I just like to point out that the Spiritsong Tarot does not photograph well. The colors are very delicate and very, very detailed, so the video does not do justice to the beauty of this deck. It's a deck you definitely have to see in person. If you have a look at the cover of the guidebook is much more saturated in the color. And even though the cards are much lighter, you definitely get the feeling of the saturation when you have the cards in hand. So this is the guidebook for the Spiritsong Tarot. And I'll just give you an example page. Well, let's go to the peacock. So for each animal, you have about a page in Paulina's guidebook. And this message says, Peacock, watchful and dignified, trusts in the wonders that the future holds. Her feathers are associated with resurrection, arising from the ashes, so much like the phoenix. It's now time to shed the feathers of your past and be rid of your old ways of thinking. Step into the beauty of your individuality with a new plume of self-confidence, graced with the vision to see ahead. Peacock will direct you in making all of the changes you desire, changes that will result in new patterns and breakthroughs. This is a time of inner development and new beginnings. Great things are about to take place. Be mindful of your dream state, as it will bring forth revelations and ideas that will help you shape your new reality. Allow the new to emerge. You are the divine self reawakened. So that's a really beautiful message. Key word on this deck is renewal and enlightenment. The key word here is let it shine. Let yourself stand out and be noticed. With the wild unknown animal spirit, it's much more intuitive, and if you're not familiar with the animals or you're not familiar with the spirit of the animals, then you will likely be relying more heavily on the guidebook. Her keywords are inner beauty, compassion, assimilator of anything. The beauty of the peacock is unrivaled. It's easy to think it comes from the plumage, but the secret of the peacock is that the beauty resides within and extends outward indefinitely. The adept creature can assimilate or digest all experiences in life, so it does not harbor resentment, conflict, or past pain within its psyche. The peacock type is extremely rare. Not many of us have reached this advanced level of acceptance of the self and others. So in Kim's guidebook, you get about a paragraph per animal. So let's have a look at horse spirit. The beauty of some of these cards is that the horse is actually in movement, which is really powerful. Let's have a look at the guidebook from the new deck, Horse Spirit. Freedom is yours. So that's the same phrase that's on the card. The nice thing too about this deck is that the cards are numbered, and it's very easy to reference the guidebook if you're looking for the message there. When horse spirit appears, you are gifted with the spirit of movement and freedom. It's time for travel and adventure, whether that means a trip somewhere or taking a different type of journey, one of freedom of choice. Horse spirit reminds you that no matter the circumstances, you have free will and choices that can take you far away to a better place, a better situation. a better state of being, for there is no one but you to rein in your will to make a different decision. So you can see that in this guidebook there's quite a long message, and there is also a protection message, which is what Colette Baron-Reid calls the reverse message. So instead of having a negative connotation, it's more of a, exactly what this says, it's a protection message. All right, so this is a very extensive guidebook. This would be really beneficial if you were just doing a one-card reading, getting to know the spirit of the animal. Let's have a look at Sandra Kunz's guidebook. So for the horse, across the sky, number 41, the medicine that the horse offers us is balance of wisdom, magic, humility, and humor as we step into our infinite I Am power. It is time to step out into the world and be seen for who you are. We are a pure connection to Source. We no longer feel the need to control what is outside of ourselves. Horse can take you blazing across the sky to this place of sovereign strength at the speed of light. How quickly you travel is up to you. So there's similarity, the idea of travel, the idea of movement, and you can see that with these two cards, that both of these cards have movement in them. I think a favorite animal of many depicting joy. Let's have a look at the keywords for hummingbird. We have vitality and joy. The joy of right now. Be here now. So isn't that interesting? Now, now, joy, joy. Like the horse, again, a card with quite similar meaning across the decks. Let's have a look at whale and the keyword for whale. Trust the great mystery. Music is essential to your healing and well-being, whether singing, playing an instrument, or listening. And in the Spiritsong Tarot, fulfillment and celebration. This is the guidebook for the Stephen Farmer deck. And it is, you know, a typical Hay House guidebook, unlike the guidebook for the new deck, which is twice as thick. Stephen Farmer's deck has 44 cards, and the Colette Baron-Reid deck has 68 cards. See, these cards are not numbered, but the guidebook is in alphabetical order, which does help. In this guidebook, you have a full page and a half for many of the animals. Most of the animals, some animals you have more than a page and a half. For humpback whale, in order to diagnose their patients, one of the questions the shamans often asked was when the patient stopped singing. If it had been quite some time, the shaman was certain to recommend singing among other remedies as an essential aspect of recovery. All that's involved when you sing, the fullness and rhythm of your breathing, the opening of your mouth and jaw, and the soulful and creative expression of your spirit serves to enhance your health and raise your vibrations. Similarly, playing an instrument can touch those inner creative depths that yearn to be expressed through song. Simply listening with your full attention to your favorite tune or melody can also inspire and heal. Make music as essential to your lifestyle as eating and breathing. And then after the description, there's also more associations and other keywords down at the bottom. So quite a different flavor in this guidebook. And here's the card that was common across all 5 decks. The Spider Spirit. I don't know if that's a surprise or not. It is one of my favorite cards in most of these decks. Just because of the metaphor, the symbolism is just so rich and so powerful. Just the web and all that the web means and the effort that is taken to create the spider web. On the new deck, the keyword is make your dreams real. Trust the creative spark you're feeling and express it through writing stories that inspire and enlighten. That sounds a bit like Charlotte's Web. The Destiny of One. Security and Abundance. From Sandra Kunz's Guidebook, The Destiny of One. As I heal for everyone. When I am connected with the infinite essence within me, everyone and everything is affected as we are connected. As we become more conscious, we can choose to believe in the magic of miracles, or we can choose to believe in suffering. We have a choice in every situation to choose which road to take, and that is our free will. And our free will can only be exercised consciously, and we continually choose to allow miracles to enter our life instead of suffering. Our reality will change. It must. Love and trust hold a much different vibration than fear and doubt. The body of the spider is the symbol of infinity. Our spirit is infinite, without beginning or end, and our wholeness perfectly encompasses our light and shadow. The belief that the light and shadow are separate creates the illusion of separation in our physical world, and this illusion of duality and separation is the root of all suffering. The web is the symbol of our connection to everyone, everything, and especially ourselves. Our highest service to others begins with our connection to the core of ourselves, the pure essence within us, that is the all-encompassing light of one. The living embodiment of this connection is our natural state of being, and when we live from this connection, we are the vibration of wholeness, compassion, and love, which easily heals the illusion of pain, duality, and suffering. So a very, very spiritual message in Sandra's guidebook. In Stephen Farmer's guidebook, we have a slightly different flavor, but I'll read you one paragraph. To inspire and enlighten others, you don't need a profoundly complex tale. Start by describing a personal experience, one where you gain some insight that may also be useful to others. However, don't focus on how people will respond to your story. Instead, just enjoy the process of writing without judging your work or yourself. Write to express, not to impress. The key words for him are creativity, wisdom, weaving, balance, storytelling, writing, connectedness, inspiration, femininity, nurturing, communication, imagination, and individuality. And just a couple of phrases from Paulina Cassidy's book. She's designed her web in her personal garden of life and is now in a position of repose and comfort. Aware of the limitless force of creation, she possesses confidence in her self-development. Spider will help you construct your own formula of success to apply to anything that you're working on. Enjoy the abundance you have earned and be wise about the life you continue to weave for yourself. You hold the power within your hands to fashion your most effective life. From the Wild Unknown guidebook, we learn that this card reminds us creativity is everywhere. Be process-oriented rather than results-oriented. And as soon as your work becomes like the weaving of a magical, priceless tapestry, abundance follows. That's really, really beautiful. And then from the guidebook that inspired this whole video, Weaving your dreams into the fabric of life begins with a single thread of intention, and then Spirit joins you as your co-weaving partner. Take but a single step to make your dream a reality, and Spirit will take 10 toward you. For the universe is designed to support your dream weaving. And then a little further along, another message of Spider Spirit is about any creative project you may be considering: writing, painting, music, journaling, gardening, etc. Now is the time when inspiration wants to be channeled through you as something creative, even artistic and tangible. Creative projects are successful now. If you are so inclined, let yourself be open to abundance. So quite a similar message among all 5 decks. So really, when you are looking for inspiration in an animal-based deck, you know, are you looking at the artwork? Is the saturation of color important? In a deck where you have more of an expanded message, does that support you? Or do you prefer a deck that is more intuitive, where you're simply looking at color? I mean, this is beautiful. All the colors of the rainbow are included within this web. And you're left to your experience, to your imagination, to your intuition to formulate the meaning or refer to the guidebook. Now I'd like to look at some of the cards that gave me some kind of pause for one reason or another. So we've got Rabbit Spirit here. The rabbit has her bunnies, her babies underneath her belly. Really beautiful card. The key phrase is, now is a lucky time. I was surprised to see the word lucky on this card. I don't think of rabbits as being lucky. I think of them more as fertility. And so I was hoping that the guidebook was not going to refer to a lucky rabbit's foot. And so referring to the guidebook, it does talk about fertility. It does talk about co-creating with Spirit, letting new ideas spring to the surface. It's very much about creation. So I'm wondering why the key phrase doesn't have something to do with creation. Here is another example. So the snake card, Snake Spirit, the key word is time to heal. Usually when we think of the snake, as far as the healing goes, it refers to the shedding of the skin. And in the shedding of the skin, the shedding of the past, the shedding of the old stories, yes, we do begin to heal. I just think that including the word shed or letting go would make the message just more intuitive. Okay, now these 2 cards are cards that have a less than bubbly message, shall we say. And there seems to be a shortage of cards in the deck that are, most of them are quite joyful. Most of them are very positive cards. They are very affirming and nurturing. These 2 cards here have a more down-to-earth, you know, like deal with your business kind of message. And there really is a shortage of these kind of cards in the deck. However, I will give Colette credit. She does have protection messages for every single card in the book, so that if a card does appear upside down in reverse position, there is a different kind of flavor to the message. So if you are reading cards, if you are reading reversals, then you will get the benefit of more of a, you know, dealing with your stuff kind of message. But if you're only reading the cards in an upright position, there are very few cards that have more of a, you know, in-your-face kind of message. The brown bear card. So I used to live in Whistler. I used to live in mountain country. Now this bear to me looks more like a grizzly bear than a black bear. And it is to my knowledge, there is no such thing as brown bears. The brown bears are actually black bears that are brown in color. So I just wish she had not had the word brown here, or either grizzly bear spirit or black bear spirit or bear spirit. But the keyword is beautiful, and the image is beautiful. I love the feathers coming out of the ear. So the next few cards I'd like to look at are some of the birds. So as you know, birds are element of air. They are spirit. They fly high above. They see things from a higher perspective, much more connected to spirit than some of the animals that are on the ground. And let's just have a look at the keywords for these cards. Spirit has your back. Trust in the magic. Let spirit be your guide. Co-create with spirit for the crow. The key phrase on these cards is very similar. If you are using these cards intuitively, relying on the key phrase and not going to the guidebook, then these cards are quite redundant. If you refer to the guidebook, I think you're also going to find there are quite similar meanings among many of the cards. And I will give you another example. There are other examples of cards with very similar message. For example, the koi and the buffalo are both cards of abundance. The koala and the turtle are both cards of, you know, take your time, enjoy the journey, enjoy the path. So while this deck does have 68 cards, there's not 68 different messages from spirit. There's a lot of duplicate messages. And I think there's a way to get around these duplicate messages, because if you take the time to go through the guidebook and read the thoughtful messages that Colette has written, if the key phrases were better written, then you would be able to intuit the larger meaning of the descriptions in the guidebook. For example, the message in the guidebook for the eagle is very similar to the hermit card in the tarot. This is a time of reflection and self-study. Spirit has your back does not really give that kind of message. The hawk message is let spirit be your guide, but in the guidebook it talks more about signs and learning to pay attention to signs. So it'd be really useful if the word sign was here. For crow spirit, it says co-create with spirit. And, you know, the key word that would be most helpful to me is trust, because that's where Colette is going with the crow. And there's nothing here really that says trust to me. So these are just a few of my thoughts on this deck. In summary, the artwork is amazing, and I could just ruminate over these pictures for hours. They are so beautiful. If I could cut the keywords off this deck, I would. Unfortunately, if the keywords are cut off, the beautiful mandala on the back is going to be off balance, so that's not going to work. Yeah, I would love to have the opportunity to edit the key phrases on the cards. Other than that, you will not be disappointed with this deck. There's a great variety of species. The card stock is amazing. It's very similar to the Mystical Shaman Oracle. The box, the magnetic box, is beautiful. And like I said, it is all about the artwork. So please let me know what your experience has been with this deck so far. I'm really, really curious. So I guess the question now is, you know, which one is the winner? Which one is the best all-round animal deck, and why? And which deck am I going to pull out for what reasons when? And are there some things about each of these decks that makes them more accessible than others. So first of all, I'm going to comment on each of them, and then I'm going to answer that question. Okay, so let's start with this one, the messenger cards, guidance from your animal spirits. This is a beautiful deck, beautiful card stock. I love that the cards are square. There's a variety of cards, so some of them are colorful, some of them are black and white. The messages in the guidebook are perfect. There's a mixture of direct messages from animal spirit. There is some medicine messages in the guidebook. The only thing I don't like about this deck is that there are fewer animals. The Stephen Farmer deck to me is great. I love the artwork. The only thing I don't like about this deck is the extended messages on the cards. I really wish there was just a short key phrase on the cards. But other than that, I really like this deck. There's a great variety of animals. There's quite a few animals from Australia represented here, as opposed to Sandra's deck, which are just animals from around where she lives, which is in Alberta, Canada. The Animal Spirit Guidebook, the Animal Spirit deck, has a good variety of animals. It is the second largest deck of all of these decks. The one thing I do like about this deck is that there are relatively an even number of animals for earth, water, fire, and air. And she also has animals which represent spirit. So there's a unicorn card. Just let me go to that page. There's a phoenix. There's a unicorn. There's a sea serpent. And then each of the other four elements have the same number of animals represented in the deck. So I really appreciate that about this deck. I love the simplicity of the artwork. I do wish there was a keyword on the cards. The Spiritsong Tarot works beautifully as an oracle deck. I do wish the cards were as saturated as the picture on the guidebook. That is the only thing that I don't like about it. And then we have Colette Baron-Reid's new deck, the Spirit Animal Oracle. Can't say enough about the artwork. The guidebook is super thorough. I appreciate that there is a protection message for every card. As I said before, that kind of compensates for the few cards that are less than positive. And really my only beef with this deck is that some of the key phrases do not capture the essence of the entire message in the guidebook. So I would love to see some of those key phrases rewritten, because I think that the impression that the messages are repetitive and duplicate is the fault of the words that were chosen for the key phrases, because the content is not necessarily duplicate if you're referring to the guidebook, if that makes sense. So thank you for listening to my video. If you've made it this far, I would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Thank you so much, and stay well, my friends. Namaste.